Welcome, sports fans, to this sports Q&A here on Schleg Daddy TV. And I know I said before that I would do them every Wednesday and Sunday. Well, I've changed my mind a little bit, just so you know. Starting next week, I'm going to try and do them every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So make sure you take to Twitter, tweet your questions to @SchlegDaddyTV, and every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, I'll answer your sports-related questions here on Schleg Daddy TV. Information, again, will be in the description box on how to do that, as well as some of the content that I've been doing on this channel this month so far. So let's get started with the questions here, and I will go to @AlexShirley10, who asked, do you think the Patriots will go to the Super Bowl this season with the additions of Revis and Browner? I suppose they're in the mix. They're in contention every year, but ultimately, do I think so? No, I don't. At One Shot You Die 55, if the four elite quarterbacks, Brady, Manning, Rodgers, Breeze, were to get injured, which team would suffer the most? It's not Rodgers with Green Bay because they suffered, but they still managed to hang around enough to make the playoffs last year. None of these other three teams have really great backup quarterbacks. But I would have to say, if there was one that I would point to, excuse me, it would probably have to be Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, I would go with Breeze, although you could make definitely an argument that if any of these four quarterbacks went out for their respective teams, the Patriots, the Broncos, the Packers, the Saints, those teams would be pretty much cooked. But I think, especially in the case of the Saints, perhaps more than any of the other three, if Drew Brees went out for any significant period of time, that team would be fucked, because so much of what they do on offense is built around Drew Brees being able to throw the ball a ton and being incredibly accurate in spreading the ball and getting people involved and all of that. At Jaguar 492, excuse me, what were your thoughts on the All-Star Game selections? Really don't have many thoughts on them. I was glad to see Starlin Castro, as a Cubs fan, get another All-Star bid. I was happy to see Jeff Samardzija be recognized, even with, I think it was a 2-7 record, for his great pitching performance this year, even though unfortunately he won't be able to pitch in the All-Star game, which I think is a bit of an abomination in my opinion. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of gripes. I'm sure there are always things you could say, well, what about this person or that person? In general, I thought people did a decent job. At Yeah Buddy Official, how many games into the 2014 season do you believe the Jaguars will bench Chad Henne and begin the Blake Bortles era? You know, they're saying a lot of the things that make you think and believe that Chad Henne is going to start the entire season. But I just think that that is kind of ridiculous. Ultimately, you did spend the third overall pick on him. And in part, you did that because Chad Henne was your starter and because Blaine Gabbert was such a colossal failure. Once you sit there and, let's say, if you were the Jags, you started off the season and you went like 2-7 or 3-8 or 4-8. How could you sit there and justify that Chad Henne gives you a better chance to win over Blake Bortles when you've already basically been eliminated from playoff contention? I would assume, unless there's an injury, that Chad Henne will start a good portion of the season. But at some point in time, you got to give the keys to Blake Bortles at some point in time in the year. Get him some tick, get him some playing time, get him some experience. At Panic Hornets fan, thoughts on Charlotte going back to the Hornets name? It's not the same franchise, so I don't know why they did that. I thought that was kind of stupid personally. At Omer H82, in your opinion, what should the NFL do to fix the Pro Bowl? Probably the best thing they could do to fix the Pro Bowl is tie more money to playing in the game, and I mean a lot more money to playing in the game. I don't know how willing the NFL is to do that, but if they really truly care that much about the Pro Bowl, then you sit there and give out $500,000 to the losing side if you actually played in the game, and maybe $750,000 or $1 million to each of the players on the winning side that actually played and participated in the game. You know, bullshit talks and money walks, I guess you could say. So throw more money at it, and a lot of these guys will be looking at a huge fucking payday and say, you know what, yeah, I got to get me some of that. And that might be the best and only way to fix it. I do think it should go after the Super Bowl, though. I think having it the week before the Super Bowl is stupid. At sports_talk 96, 85 Bears are a steel curtain defense of the 70s. For a single season, the 85 Bears. Even though the 84 Bears had more sacks and the 86 Bears actually allowed fewer points, the 85 Bears is the one defense that won the Super Bowl. But in terms of a defense in general, I would take the steel curtain defense of the 70s because they were more a dominant unit for a longer period of time, and they won 4 Super Bowl championships in a 6-year stretch. At Edsel4, do you think a Pacquiao-Mayweather bout will ever happen? Who do you think will win if they fought? Ultimately, this fight needs to fucking happen. Manny Pacquiao needs to stop being such a stupid bitch. Floyd Mayweather needs to stop being such a stupid bitch. The irrelevant sport of professional boxing needs to stop being so fucking stupid and ensure that this fight happens. The fact that this fight hasn't happened just shows you why nobody gives a shit about boxing anymore in this fucking country. How fucking stupid can all parties involved be? Here's a reason, here's a reason, here's a reason. Just fucking do it. And who would win if they fought? Ultimately, the sport of boxing and maybe boxing fans, whatever ones are still left. All of the people involved with not having this fight actually occur yet should be open-hand pimp slapped in the public square, and everybody else should be able to engage in the activity as well. It's fucking stupid and ridiculous. At Beam to Cashman. If you could bring back 2 NFL teams from the past to be in today's NFL to make the overall product better, who would they be? If you're saying teams, I'm assuming you're saying like good teams from the past. I would say the Raiders of the 70s and the Cowboys of the 70s, because when the Raiders and Cowboys are really good, the NFL is better off for it. And as a result, you know, why not have the Raiders be that real, to put it in wrestling terms, that heel team, that team that either some people love or everybody else loves to hate. You love to have that in terms of when you're marketing and promoting your brand, and the Raiders fit that perfectly. And then here's Dallas with Landry and Staubach, America's team. You know, the league would be a lot better off if the Cowboys and Raiders were really good again. So I'd bring back both of those teams from the 70s. At Hall Wings, in your opinion, Schleg Daddy, who are the biggest draft busts for each of the 4 major sports leagues? Okay. I won't do hockey, and I won't do baseball. I'll do NBA and NFL. Biggest draft bust, Michael Olowokandi was bad. Kwame Brown was bad. Washburn was bad. In terms of NBA, Darius Miles was terrible. I could go on and on and on. NFL, obviously, you've got Jamarcus Russell, you've got Ryan Leaf, you've got Achilles Smith, and again, I could go on and on and on. At V9X18, should the Browns release Josh Gordon? Man. I just did a video on this channel yesterday about this very topic, and I hope Josh Gordon gets the help that he clearly needs. I hope it doesn't come to that, but if the Browns did it, I would understand. It's incredibly risky because you're putting one of the very best wide receivers in the game out there on the market for somebody else to just pick up. But maybe he needs, for the benefit of him, for his long-term health and well-being and his ability to maybe overcome these demons and addictions, maybe the Browns need to send a message that, hey, Buster, you know, this could be taken away from you. This isn't guaranteed. This is a privilege, not a right. And you're pretty close to losing that privilege. Maybe it needs to happen, unfortunately. At Antonio Vargas01, if Jordan had been drafted by the Blazers in 84, do you think the Bulls would have won a championship in the 90s? Hell no. Hell no. Oh, hell no. Not even. And the Blazers would have never won one anyways, because they would have sat there and had 2 players that basically played the same position, which is a problem with a lot of these teams that are in the lottery year in and year out. Every year they go into the lottery, it seems like, and they draft the same type of fucking player, which makes absolutely no fucking sense to me. At some point in time, there has to be a focus on fit. There has to be a focus on chemistry and compatibility of styles of play. If you had Drexler and Jordan on the same team, it would be a disaster for all parties involved. John Cena is a tool. I'm a huge Patriots fan, but should I worry about Brady's age, or do you think he has one more Super Bowl run left? I think you should be a little concerned about Brady's age, actually, because let's face it, the Patriots haven't won a Super Bowl in a decade now. Furthermore, the last two times they have went to the Super Bowl in 2007 and 2011, they lost both of those. And Brady's not getting any younger. He's getting ever so closer to 40. And the track record of quarterbacks age 35 and older winning Super Bowls is not that extensive, is not that long, and is not that good. So, yes, I do think you should be a little bit worried about his age because the precedent is there to suggest that Brady will not win another Super Bowl during his career in the NFL. At Mika Kivi, what do you expect from D Rose next season? I'm not really sure. I would like to expect him to be able to stay healthy and play at least 70 to 75 games. Um, I would think that if he does play, you'll see some flashes of his old form, but I think it'll be a little bit of a struggle at times in 2014, 2015. I'm not really sure what to expect, frankly, at this point. At Kravis54, why are the Detroit Lions a consistently bad franchise when the other sports franchises in Detroit are all successful? Again, a really good question, isn't it? You look at the Red Wings. You look at the Tigers. Even though the Tigers had a stretch of time in recent years where they weren't very good at all, when you look at even the Pistons, they've had some success, obviously, over the years. The Lions, some might say it's the curse of Bobby Lane. Comes down to front office and ownership and management. It's really what it comes down to. That's just the truth. At Jacob Castle 42, which is a greater sports rivalry and why? Bears versus Packers or Larry Bird Celtics versus Magic Johnson's Lakers? You have to go with Bears and Packers. Now look, Bird versus Magic encompassed so many things. It was white versus black. It was East versus West. It was Lakers versus Celtics. It had so many things going for it. Contrast in personalities and styles of play and organizations and everything else. And it helped save the NBA. It really, truly did. When the Lakers won the NBA Finals in 1980, a lot of people don't understand the fact that the NBA was in a very bad way after the 70s. And the NBA was in such low demand and thought of so poorly that the NBA Finals were shown on tape delay. Tape delay. Could you imagine today's NBA Finals being shown on tape delay? I couldn't. But they were once. And, their rivalry in the 80s revitalized the NBA and saved the NBA and allowed Michael Jordan and the cast of characters that came along during that decade to really, take the NBA to unprecedented heights that it may never reach again. But you're talking about Bears and Packers. This is a rivalry that goes back over 90 years with all the great players, the great coaches, and so on and so forth. Great moments, great games. Just far too much history to throw Bird and Magic over them. Sorry. Maybe that's my Bears bias, but it is what it is. And at Real JMC 97 closes out this Q&A by asking, do you think the Golden State Warriors made the right choice by firing Mark Jackson? Not particularly, but I understand why they did it. Maybe they felt Mark Jackson was a bit of a prick. Maybe they thought Mark Jackson was kind of rough on his assistant coaches. They didn't necessarily, the front office, get along with Mark Jackson. Maybe they felt it was the best move for all people involved to get rid of Mark Jackson. I don't see why they thought firing him and bringing in Steve Kerr is an upgrade. To me, if you're going to fire somebody as a head coach, you would think you would have to envision somebody being an upgrade in order to necessitate and justify the firing of the previous coach, especially a coach that had taken your team to the playoffs. I just don't see where Steve Kerr is that much of an upgrade. To me, it seems like a lateral move, probably more so of a downgrade. So I just don't get it. I also don't get, well, yeah, I do. I understand why Steve Kerr was able to command so much more in terms of salary as a first-time head coach than a lot of other first-time head coaches are, and you can figure out why that is. But anyways, thanks to all of you that submitted your questions for this sports Q&A. Next one's coming up Sunday, so take to Twitter and tweet your sports questions to me. And the Twitter handle, actually, I think I might have said earlier was Schlegel TV. That's incorrect. It's at pfspot_Schlegel. And I'll put information in the description box. Starting next week, the Q&As will be coming every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday here on Schleg Daddy TV.